I'm Bo and I'm back with another Q&A. Today's Q&A, all right, we've got a question from Rosie. Rosie says, one thing I've been unable to figure out is getting my guides names. How do we get names? So clearly, Rosie, you've got guide communication, which is wonderful. And I ran across this myself when I first started communicating with my guides, years back. And I asked the question, what's your name? Because I had verbal communication between me and my first guide. So what's your name? And his response was, which one do you want? And I got this sort of wave and feeling of understanding, and he went on to explain to me, he's had multiple lives. And it's not until we're in this life that we give ourselves a name. So on the other side, if you think about it, let's say you've done 100 lives and you're now on the other side. And so you kind of have 100 names. With that said, that doesn't mean that you can't, name your guide, or your guide won't give you a name. There's a lot of different situations that could happen. When you ask for their name, they might give you one. Guides understand that we need the name. They don't need the name, we need the name. We need it for identification purposes. They exist in nonlinear time. So for them, they don't need to, compartmentalize things like our human brain does in order to focus on them and understand them on this linear time. So for a guide, they might give you a name, which is awesome. Or you can ask, hey, I feel like your name would be this. Or you can, come up with a nickname for him. My first guide's nickname was Big Dog because he just came through as this bigger than life presence. The guides they're so connected on the other side, and they're connected to all aspects. Here's another way to think of it. When I talked to my guide and I said, okay, well, I'm lovingly calling you Big Dog, but I still really would like a name. And he said, which name do you want? And I said, well, is there one that's meaningful? And he said, yes. How about you call me Walking Elk, which was the name that he had in the lifetime where him and I were both here on Earth. And he said, that's meaningful. Okay. So names are for us, really, than they are more for the guides. Now, in general, I'm talking about guides in general, obviously. There are, the higher ups and the archangels, and, there's the Christ energy and all that as well. And those are all possibilities that are out there that's a little bit easier. You know what their name is. Archangel Michael is Archangel Michael, I get it. But for other guides who have done multiple lifetimes down here on Earth, and now they're just currently watching over you and guiding you, if you didn't know them during your lifetime, that's where you get in the situation of saying, okay, what do I call them? So, fun story, I had a guide come through probably my third year of being open. I didn't open intuitively until I was like 31. About the third year of being open, I needed a little bit of discipline. That's my nice way of saying it. I needed to learn a few things, you know what I mean? And so I kind of had to go through a little bit of boot camp, and I got a guide who came through to do that for me. And she was interesting. She came through, and she looked like a very, uptight, type of person. She was dressed from the 70s. She had a clipboard. She had like the glasses down at the end of her nose, and she just started like that scowl, and she was just checking things off to make sure, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. Mind you, she ended up helping me tremendously because sometimes we all need to go through a little boot camp, right? But I couldn't get a name out of her. I said, what's your name? So what's your name? And I could never get her to laugh or smile either, which just kind of cracked me up because I'm like, wow, this female spirit has like no sense of humor, right? So I said, fine, I'm going to call you Mrs. Crabapple. And she turns and she looks at me and she goes, call me Nancy. And I said, okay, there we go, the name. So she understood that I needed an identifier. I needed to be able to put the name on her so I could have that focus. So instead of focusing on all aspects of source, I could focus in on this one aspect of source, the guide, Nancy. That's what a name does between you and a guide, is it allows you to focus in on them, and it opens up a little bit more channels of communication. So Nancy was wonderful. She was with me for 2 years. She was tough and loving and helped me tremendously, and I'm very grateful. But you know, all my closest friends laugh because they know Nancy with the clipboard. And I remember back then too, having gone to a reader once, and the reader was like, oh, there's a guide coming through, she's super strict. It's like she's writing things down on a clipboard. And I was like, yes, that's awesome. He was a really good reader. So, great question. When it comes to names, just know that they're more for you than for the guide. What that's going to do is that's going to release you from the pressure of having to try to figure out what their name is. Just know that this is an identifier for you to help you have better communication with them. And again, unless they're higher up that already has a name that's sort of throughout history, or a loved one that's passed, so they do have a name that you remember, then the name is simply the identifier. Great question. Thank you so much. I will be back with the next one.